put them through a fingerprinting process, that's one less got away. At least we know who these people are.
One
What
less
you've done
one
is
that
not
got
only
away.
protect the state of Texas and the citizens of Texas, you are protecting this nation. And it's a shame we have other governors and other mayors who are right out of the gate. I said they're going to push back on President Trump and what we're trying to do, especially for interior enforcement. Let me be clear. There is going to be a mass deportation.
All right.
Because we just finished a mass illegal immigration crisis on the border.
Oh boy.
Where anybody can look at 9 out of 10 people claim asylum at the border will end up with an order removal. So you can't ask for the right to claim asylum, the right to see a judge, the right to due process, and we give you that due process, and at the end of that due process, a federal judge orders you removed, we have to remove them. Because if we don't, shut down the immigration court. Those orders don't mean anything anymore. Take you guys off the border because there's no consequences. So you can't demand due process and the right to claim asylum and not obey the court order. That is why there needs to be a mass deportation. We have a mass number of people, millions of people who will get a final order and be ordered removed. If we don't do it, what is the option? Let them stay? Because if you let them stay, you'll never fix the border. You're going to send a message to the rest of the world. Enter the country illegally, which is a crime.
Man.
Ignore a court order, you never have to go home. We're telling the whole world it's okay to enter this country illegally, you never got to go home.
It's crazy how this shit's even a conversation, to be honest. Like, you take a step back and you think about, like, people actually, like, this is, it's like a political argument. Isn't that crazy? Wow.
Crazy.
Laws. And we're going to enforce the laws. The men and women of ICE, they're going to have a tough job ahead of them. And I'm sending a message for people that say they're going to get in our way. They're going to stop us from doing what we're doing an interior enforcement operation. I've said 100 times last week, don't cross that line. It is a felony to knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from immigration authorities. Don't test us.
I'm going to laugh my fucking ass off when these people, because this is what I think is going to happen. I think that some people, like, at the beginning are probably going to try to, step up and try to stop them from doing it. And I think that they're just going to straight up put them in jail. That's probably what's going to happen. Like, these mayors, just put them in jail. That's going to be it. And I bet, like, after this happens twice, because, the first time it usually, they're like, oh, it's not going to be a big of a deal. After it happens twice, everybody else is going to stop doing it. Good, they should? Well, no, you're right. I agree. Yeah, 100%. Arrest anyone who obstructs. Why do people oppose kicking out illegal immigrants? Probably number one reason why they oppose it is because they don't have to deal with it. These are people that live in countries, and not countries, states that are like way up north, and like they don't have to deal with any form of illegal immigration at all. Yeah, and it's a luxury belief. Exactly.
A luxury belief.
When was the last time a state mayor got arrested? I don't know. Probably pretty soon.
The nation.
What about Gavin Newsom? Are they going to arrest him if he obstructs them? Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's the president. Why not? I mean, if he's not cooperating with the federal government, then yeah, of course arrest him.
What? You need food?
Duh. I mean, you have to, like, you got to follow the law. They down? No, treason. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. I think that they should.
It's a safe country. We've had enough crime in this country, like illegal alien crime. It's time to end it and stop it.
Yep.
President Trump's committed to it. He's committed to securing this border. He's committed to having this mass deportation operation and concentrating on public safety threats and national security threats. For any mayor or governor to push back on
Hell yeah. Public safety.
That is your number one responsibility. You ought to be teaming up with us. We have created the biggest national security vulnerability in this nation on the southern border. Because like I said, 2 million known gotaways. We don't know how many unknown gotaways. Already record number of people on the terrorist watch list.
God is not a creation of man. God created men. Men are creaturely. God is uncreated. He's eternal. What?
Yo, what's up?
So do you accept God as your creator?
No, I do not.
Well, I take the position you can't rationally deny God. Would you agree with that?
I completely disagree with that.
Okay, what would be the rationale to deny God?
There's no evidence of it whatsoever. That's obviously the most straightforward rationale.
You're saying that evidence can exist with independence of God?
Yes.
How did you determine that?
In the same way I determine everything else in my life.
Well, because the way I see it, like God would be necessary for evidence, and if you were to deny God, it'd be like denying evidence. So I don't.
In what way? I mean, we can't go based off the way we know the solar system works. We have evidence of that. And in the Bible, it got that wrong. In the Old Testament, it said the Earth came before the sun, but we know that's not true.
Well, to have evidence, we need things like logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the Christian God would ground logic, so I can use logic, and logic would exist in my world. But like,
In what way?
Well, because like logic is immaterial, it's universal, it's unchanging. God is immaterial, universal, unchanging. So God can explain how logic.
No. Just because you made up an idea of what you believe is immaterial, unchanging, doesn't mean it actually is, right? I could say that about. I can give that same analogy about anything else. Like exactly, like I could say the same thing about like the game of chess, right? The rules of chess, right? That's immaterial. That's not changing. It doesn't mean you know what I'm saying? That doesn't really equate.
Well, but you said I just made it up, but I didn't I didn't write the Bible. So God.
Yeah, no, man. You know what I mean by you. I meant man.
Man, well, that's not how it works, though. So the idea is that God gives us knowledge. Do you reject the idea that God gives us knowledge?
Absolutely.
Okay. What was I going to?
Do you want to explain how?
Well, explain how.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very key point that you're missing, right? Like you're gonna like have this belief. Like I'm confused where it comes from.
He can just like directly talk to us and tell
Do you
us.
have any proof of that?
Yeah, like the prophets, the Bible, Jesus.
That's not proof.
According to you?
No, I mean according to you yourself, right? Because you want to take everything in other biblical scriptures as truth because like I imagine that's the reason you don't believe in like the Quran, right? You don't believe it to be true.
What's that?
I imagine the reason you don't believe in the Quran is because you don't believe it to be true.
The Quran is a self-defeating worldview. Islam is a self-defeating worldview because the Quran says Allah is a great deceiver. So the God has to be like always truth revealing, like the Christian God. So
I mean, you believe it's not true, correct?
No, we would like. Well, I mean, it would. It's a self-defeating. It's a contradiction. Any.
So you believe it's true, but you believe it's self-defeating.
No, I'm saying any position that's not Christian, any worldview that's not Christian would be a performative contradiction.
Yeah, but if they had scriptures and prophets that acclaimed that they've spoken to God, right? Why would you go against that?
Because I told you the Quran says God is always the deceiver, so that would be.
But why would you go against it? They got divine intervention from God.
Because I just explained this to you. The Quran says Allah is a deceiver. That means it's a self-defeating. It's a contradiction. So it can't be true.
Yeah, but you see my point here, right? That wasn't it. You didn't give me any kind of proof. That was kind of the end goal of it, right? Because you wouldn't take that as proof.
I did give you a point, though.
Yeah, no, but I mean, just because you don't agree with the outcome.
Wait. How did you determine proof can exist with independence of God?
I mean, because we use it for every single like factor in my life. Every single thing I've known.
That's not answer to my question. Just because you use something doesn't mean anything. How did you determine proof exists independent of God?
How do you determine that there's not a unicorn flying out in the stratosphere of space?
Because I would prove it with like some sort of evidence, right? So like look, man.
Yeah, right.
To have evidence or to prove something, we need things like identity over time. We need uniformity of nature, right? We need a logical consistency, and we need like a natural, a consistency to the natural world.
Yeah,
So
but
how do you,
yeah,
how do you
I mean,
ground like
we can
logic or uniformity of nature in your godless model of reality?
yeah we can argue the Bible has like it's totally illogical, right? I mean, morality wise, it's also physically impossible.
You're
There's some
ignoring what I'm saying.
no, I'm not at all, right? Because
You are completely
okay,
ignoring the evidence.
what evidence?
Look, God is necessary to ground logic and to ground like the
Okay,
uniformity of nature.
explain how.
And those, because if God reveals to us, for example, that like God's the absolute identity statement for one, that's necessary for logic.
No,
So
but you're not.
to use logic, you're going to have to give me an absolute identity statement that's not God, which you're not going to be able to do that, right?
No, I absolutely can.
No, you can't.
And give me an example of a logical statement that uses God, or I mean, just give me an example of a logical statement.
Okay, so the law of identity that A equals A, for that to be true, something has to limit an entity's states of existence so that the entity's states of existence are limited. So like what in a godless model, I'm saying God limits the entity's states of existence. So like the apple doesn't become the orange because God limits the apple. What in your godless model would limit the apple to stay the apple so that you can have identity?
We have so many laws in nature, science. We've what is it? We've done.
An answer to the question. There's no way to answer the question. You can't answer the question. So are you just gonna lie?
No, it's a bad question.
Gregory.
Yeah, go ahead.
Science can't tell us that. Science and philosophy cannot answer that question. So if you're gonna attempt to answer my question, you're just gonna lie to me. Are you gonna just lie to me?
In what? Okay, first off, so
You're gonna lie to me.
No. Let me make sure your argument's
So
clear.
admit then. You can't.
No,
there's
let me.
nothing in your model of reality that limits the states of existence. So there's no law of identity.
The laws of nature. Do you not believe in that?
Can't ground the law of logic.
Why? You haven't given me a reason why yet. You've given me a presumption, but you haven't backed that up with any evidence. You presume these things, right?
There's nothing that look. Science can't make metaphysical claims.
Okay, I feel like you just heard this and then you're like repeating a talking point because you haven't been able to go any kind of.
Just ignoring what I'm presenting.
No, I'm not because
Yes,
you've made a presumption and you're going off that that's a logical fact.
Look, Gregory, I made a devastating, precise argument. You're ignoring my argument. If you want to ignore my argument, I'll just move on to someone else. Okay.
No, okay.
What do you want to do?
I'm talking about your argument right now, right? I'm asking you to explain it deeper, but you're not able to do it, right? You're just saying I said it because it's.
You can't even understand the dumbed down explanation. Why would I go deeper into it?
No, I'm asking you to further explain yourself. I'm not asking you to.
I dumbed it down. I dumbed it down for you. Apple doesn't become orange. What limits the apple to becoming an orange? It's God and Christianity. You would have no answer to that question. And if you can't answer that question, you can't ground logic in your God. If you have no logic, then you can't even argue against me.
I do, right? Like, I don't know if you think this is some kind of. Have you thought like atheists like Sam Harris haven't been able to answer this? Like, I don't know why you think this is such a strong position. Of course they can't answer
this. Of course not.
And you think they're still atheists just because they're evil and they reject God, but they've already thought of this? Like,
they're ignoring the evidence and they believe what they want to be true. Because when but
you understand, you have yet to provide a single drop of evidence, right? You're going off a hypothesis.
But ignoring the evidence isn't a rebuttal to the evidence, unfortunately. So what you're doing, like, have you ever debated a flat earther?
Yes.
And when you present them evidence, what do they say? That's not evidence, right?
They just say they don't believe in it. They believe the source it came from.
They just deny it. They say it's not real evidence. They deny that it's evidence. That's all you're doing. I presented evidence, and you're just denying the evidence.
You realize your evidence is a hypothesis, right?
It's not a hypothesis. It's a transcendental proof that we have an experience. We're having an intelligible experience.
Yeah.
We just ask the question, what else is necessarily true for us to have an intelligible experience? So, like, logic has to be true, right? Without logic, we couldn't identify the experience. And then if you can't, like, logic,
I mean, I wouldn't
underpins-
say logic is a key identifier, right? Things can be illogical, but you can still identify them.
No, without the law of identity, we couldn't identify anything. Logic is necessary for identity. And without identity, we couldn't identify experience. And if you can't identify experience, then experience is unintelligible. You couldn't like analyze your experience.
Okay, and how does this equate back to God?
What? God's necessary for logic. So therefore,
Why do you
God's
believe that? Why?
necessary for
What?
experience.
Okay, so you see the gap you took right there, right? You just said God is necessary for logic.
I explained this. Look.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. Logic is immaterial, universal, unchanging, right? God's universal, immaterial, and unchanging. So God explains it's a grounding relationship with logic. Nothing on a godless worldview, you have nothing that's immaterial, universal, and unchanging that could ground logic in your godless worldview.
That's absolutely not true. Because
It's absolutely true, and you're just low information.
I disagree with the premise. I disagree with the premise.
You can't.
What do you mean I can't disagree with the premise?
Because to disagree results in a contradiction. You can't even disagree. No.
But I mean, that's obviously not true, right?
It is true. That's how the argument works, that to disagree with the conclusion of the argument results in a performance contradiction.
No, I disagree with the premise.
You can't.
Yes, I can't. That's literally the whole point of a premise, is to be agreed or disagreed upon. In what way can I not?
That's why the transcendental argument completely craps on you, because it's designed to be anti-skeptical. The whole point is you can't deny it.
I can't deny your premise that something is was it immaterial?
Look, no, because this is how it works. If you raise doubt about whether like the Bible's true, right? You have to grant that we have intelligibility, that you can understand the world. But if you grant that you can understand the world, then the Bible is true due to the necessary relationship. So to even doubt whether the Bible is
the necessary
true,
relationship?
you must grant the Bible is true. It's
I
impossible.
want to extrapolate, because this is where the breakdown's going. What is the necessary relationship?
I explained, like, logic is just one of the examples. There's also the uniformity of nature. There's causality.
So is this the fine-tuning argument now?
It's not a fine-tuning argument. It's a transcendental argument. Only the Christian worldview can make sense of what we experience, like the law of identity, the cause and effects and relationships between events, the uniformity of nature. So only
right. So you're saying if something is universal, immaterial, and unchanging, it is godlike.
Those are attributes that are considered divine. The same thing with like math. Numbers are immaterial, universal, and unchanging.
And so then how? Okay, and then
ground math. You wouldn't be able to ground logic. There'd be no conceptual order. Without conceptual order.
In what way are we not able to ground math?
What? Because math is the same thing as logic. Math, a number doesn't exist in the physical world, right?
Yeah.
So they're immaterial, but they're universal and they're unchanging. And so you need to.
And so, in what way does that make it godlike?
Those are divine properties. Those are properties we attribute to God.
We can say that about, like I was saying, like chess. The rules of chess are universal, immaterial, and unchanging. Is that godlike as well?
Those are attributes associated typically with the divine, yeah.
Okay, so I'm confused. So how do I take the step? If I believe that chess, I'm confused on how you believe that's a God-made thing, right? Do you believe just because it's something's universal, immaterial, it's a divine property, but humans made that, right? Humans made the rule of chess. That doesn't make it godlike or divine whatsoever. Humans made it.
I don't know what you're talking about. This chess example has nothing to do with anything.
No, it does, because just because something's universal, immaterial, and unchanging doesn't make it a godlike property. It can still be made by humans.
Gregory, are the rules of chess conventional?
Yes.
Okay, then they're simply arbitrary agreements by human beings. Therefore, they wouldn't be
the same thing math is.
Please don't. Okay, listen. How old are you, Gregory?
I'm 20.
Okay, I'm 63. Okay, Gregory, I'm not trying to insult you, but you don't have the foggiest idea of what you're talking about. To sit there and to say that the rules of chess, which you have conceded to, are conventional, is a contradiction in terms therefore, then to say earlier that they're absolute and universal and invariant. It's a contradiction in terms.
In what way?
Conventionality means that a certain rules are just simply mutually agreed upon.
Yeah, the same thing. That's the same thing with math. We mutually agreed upon the rules of math.
Gregory, you're talking to somebody who's more educated on the subject than
Can you tell me how math is not
Gregory,
Yeah, you
if
can
you're
say my name and yell. Go ahead.
Gregory, if you're 20 years old, I expect more out of you than simply acting like a machine gun talking 50-year-old. How are you able? Are you omniscient, Gregory?
No, I'm an atheist.
No, I said, are you omniscient?
I'm an atheist.
I just said sorry. Yeah, no.
Okay, so you're not omniscient. Then how do you know that anything is absolute, universal, and invariant? By what means could you determine that?
That anything's universal? I don't believe I could, but...
Well, you've now Okay, so then when you declare that the rules of chess are absolute and universal, if you declare anything being universal, right, how would you be able to determine that anything is universal, absolute, and invariant?
Because everything is arbitrary, right? Just because you have some kind of...
Okay, Gregory.
Can I...
This is embarrassing. You're going from bad to worse.
Okay, can you
if you Gregory, listen to me. I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm trying to educate you. Yeah. I'm much more educated on metaphysics than you are. You simply are not well informed on this. If you say that the rules of chess are arbitrary, are the rules of chess arbitrary?
100%.
Okay, well then they're not absolute then.
Yeah, but can't we say that for everything? Why are the...
Gregory,
can I speak?
I'm not trying... No, Gregory, I'm interjecting here, Gregory. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to educate you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
You're all over the map here. You don't know what you're talking about.
No.
If you're going to say, Gregory, just bickering like you're at the cafeteria table isn't going to make you look good. You're dealing with somebody. I'm 3 times your age. I know a lot more about philosophy, logic, and metaphysics than you do. Why don't you just be a little bit more modest and try to learn from somebody who knows more about the subject matter than you do?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to ask you a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
In what way is math not arbitrary?
I didn't say that math was arbitrary.
Okay, so what is your... I thought we were just deciding...
You said you were trying to compare that the rules of chess are divine by saying that the rules of chess are absolute, universal, and invariant. But the rules of chess are not absolute, universal, and invariant because you've conceded that they're conventional. If they're conventional, it just simply means that they're human conventions, that we've agreed upon these rules, and that we could change the rules at any moment, which means they're not absolute, invariant, or universal.
Yeah, and that's my argument about everything in this world. I believe
Gregory, I've just corrected you how you're stone cold incorrect and that you contradicted yourself. And you're either you're completely incapable of understanding this basic logic that I presented to you, or you're just in a state of denial for the sake of bickering. So which is it, Gregory?
If you understand, I agree with you, right? But I was using that.
Have you contradicted yourself, Gregory?
No.
Okay, Gregory, did you say that the laws of chess are absolute?
Yeah, so Darth, see, what you're missing is my point, right? So I was using that as a argument.
Gregory, did you assert?
Oh my God!
Did you? You're 20 years. Why are you talking like you're a 15-year-old?
Darth,
you tell me you're 20.
Oh
you tell me that you're 20 years old, and you're literally. I'm telling you, as somebody who's old enough to be your grandfather. You're not conducting yourself like a mature young man. You're conducting yourself like a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Now, you asserted, yeah. Well, you know what? In order to learn and grow in this lifetime, sometimes you have to listen to correction and reproof from people who are older and more experienced in life than you are and are more educated than you are.
No, it's funny you're saying this because you're missing my whole entire point, right?
Okay, Gregory, you're so blinded. Like you know what? I'm a mod in here. I'm about to kick you.
You can do
because you're literally at this point. Rather than just being a little bit modest and trying to learn from somebody who's correcting you, who's more educated on metaphysics than you are, you're just bickering like I'm one of your peers. I'm not one of your peers.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like I should
So Gregory,
Yeah.
you asserted that the laws of chess are absolute.
No, you're misunderstanding my point. Can I clarify my point?
No. Listen to me.
Yeah,
You asserted. I listened. I was listening carefully.
Oh my
You
god.
asserted that the rules of chess are absolute and universal. I heard you say that.
Yes.
Now,
I did say
are
that.
the rules of chess absolute and universal as you said so before?
Yes.
Okay, then it's a contradiction to therefore minutes later to say that they're conventional. That's a contradiction in terms.
No, it is not, right? So here's my argument, right?
Gregory, listen. You're
Yeah.
you're totally you're totally clueless at this point.
Yeah, can I
Okay,
clarify myself
if
or
something is conventional, it means it's just simply a temporary agreed upon rule, and it would mean that it's not absolute and universal.
that's what they see, that's my whole entire point, right? I believe everything is arbitrary in this.
Gregory, if everything is arbitrary,
Yeah.
then it means that all propositional declarations would be irrational.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay, Gregory,
Yeah.
I want you to be transparently honest in terms of the following question that I asked you. Do you have any realization that you have no idea what you're talking about?
I mean, I agree there's people that are smarter than me, obviously, on the subject, but
Gregory, do I sound in the least a bit more educated on logic, philosophy, and metaphysics than
I
you?
would say so, yeah.
Okay, so why don't you be a little bit more humble and modest?
Well, I feel because every time I've tried to explain myself and clarify my point, yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
You tell me you're 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, as a 63-year-old man, I've raised 5 children. They're all adults now. You literally are not coming across intellectually as a 20-year-old young man. You're literally sounding like an arrogant 15-year-old.
Yeah, so I feel like I've already humbled myself, right? I've already said more than me.
So
right?
If everything is arbitrary, then all declarations therefore would be irrational. Do you understand?
In what way?
So you don't understand the nature of arbitrariness?
No, I do. I'm just asking you to clarify
An arbitrary declaration is one that is invoked without reason.
I wouldn't say that.
No, it's true by definition.
No, I mean, because you wouldn't argue math.
All right, Gregory, we're done.
Oh my god.
Okay.
You can't be arbitrary in a debate. I mean, this should be obvious, but
So I didn't want to have to remove him, but I realized that as much as I tried to appeal to him the way a father would to a son or a grandchild, it was hopeless at this point because he's so blinded. And you'll notice that one of the signs, not the only signs, of when somebody doesn't know what they're talking about is they accelerate the speed of their diction. They start machine gun talking. Right?
yeah, he didn't know what he was talking about, obviously. But they don't want
to. No, Joaquin, I didn't railroad him. Gregory literally was a deer. Well, I shouldn't say literally, but he was a deer in the headlights. He had no idea what he was talking about.
You literally interrupted him every 5 seconds.
You are correct. I did frequently interrupt him because he was spewing complete metaphysical and logical ignorance.
Okay, so just because you disagree with something, which is the point of this entire conversation, it's a debate, that is grounds for you to interrupt him?
It wasn't about disagreeing.
Were you listening carefully?
I was listening very carefully. Yeah, you seemed a bit full of yourself.
Did you notice that I pointed out a number of flat-out contradictions that he made?
No, you didn't.
Okay, goodbye. You're done.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, bye. Okay, you see, these people want to come up here. They act like little children, and they want to lie.
Yeah.
All right, I have to make a phone call, so I'm gonna mute my mic.
Yeah.
Yo, what up, Precept?
What's up, Yarden? What would you like to say?
I want to ask you, so for the tag argument, right? When you present them, why? Because this is what they do, right? When they appeal to logic, they say you don't need to justify logic. how do you break that down for them? Like, because I tell them that you need an intelligent mind to
Well, I mean,
transcendental being to justify, and they say no, you don't. It just is. That's what they say.
so they're arguing, right, from a worldview, and if their worldview can't ground logic, then it wouldn't make sense for them to argue. They'd be contradicting themselves to even show up to the debate. So
Okay, that's what I was
we're
saying.
showing that how like the Christian worldview can make sense of like how we can use logic, what logic is. So there's like a referent. The mind of God would be the referent to logic. They have no referent to logic, but then they want to see. This is what we say they steal from our worldview. So they just want to have logic and use it, and they don't want to. They don't feel like they need to explain how or why they can do that, but they do. To debate, you have to explain these things.
Yeah.
Unless your opponents wants to just grant you that, right? But we're just not going to grant them that because that's how we would prove Christianity, since God's necessary for logic, logic's necessary for debate, then it follows that God's necessary to debate. So for them to even show up to the debate and to deny God is a performative contradiction.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, because that's like, I mean, I explained it to this atheist, but he couldn't. I mean, they don't understand. They don't really understand anything, to be honest. So it's like,
They don't get meta. It's a meta level argument. So like typically people are at a normative level on it when we debate and argue. We're talking about day-to-day things. We're not talking. And we take all these things for granted. Typically, like if you do the fine tuning or the Kalam argument, they'll just grant them that they already have logic or that they already in a world where they can do science. And we're saying, no, hold on. How do you make sense if there's no God? How can you explain that science is possible or that we can use logic? We say we can use logic because God's mind is God's mind is like correct thinking about the world, and we're made in His image, so we can sort of think like God or think His thoughts after Him. And so, because we're made in God's image, that explains how we can use logic, have logic. We have access to logic, where they could never explain these things.
yeah, I get what you're saying. That's I'm talking about divine rationality. I forgot about that. I got to start using that again.
We can say like what logic is. Logic is a reflection of the mind of the God. They couldn't say what logic is. We could say like what causes logic to be true, right? Because God causes things to be true. He dictates the state of affairs. They couldn't. If we ask them what would cause logic to be true, they have no idea. That's why I bring up the like, what limits the apple's identity, so that the apple doesn't turn into something else. They can't. If they can't explain that, they can't argue, because arguments assume that like things have identity. There's like a consistency in identity, that there's identity over time. Like the number 1 isn't going to change properties and become like same properties as the number 5. So like 1 equals 1, 1 does not equal 5. If there's nothing limiting the properties of 1, you can't say 1 equals 1. It could be anything. And so there's no like conceptual consistency in that world. And without that conceptual consistency, there's no arguments.
That's a fair point.
So they just, it kind of boils down to like God endows the world with order, creates it, so that it makes science, philosophy, morality possible. Where like they're in a world of chaos without the divine.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, logic is impossible. They can't. There's no justification or anything. I know that.
They have no ultimate grounding for like science or philosophy
or epistemology.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing to stand on.
Everything is ultimately based in I don't know.
Or preferences, like subjective preferences. And their worldview just makes logic subjective, which is impossible.
That's why they can just sit there and go, I'm not convinced, because they literally make themselves God, where their mind like determines what's true or false. And so as the pre-sub approach, we're trying to make them aware that that's what they're doing. Like you're literally turning yourself into God. You're dictating the truth. And so you're living in a fantasy where you've like decided for yourself that there is no. It's completely baseless.
Facts. I like how you put precept too, because they are that's the biggest argument. They say you're just presupposing, which I mean, tag is not even close to a precept.
Yeah, I think Van Til chose that word, and Van Til wasn't like a native English speaker, so I don't think that was kind of an unfortunate choice. I don't know. I don't know like of a better word, maybe like bias. So the idea is that presupposition refers to our biases in the sense of our foundational commitments, our foundational beliefs, our background beliefs.
Yep.
So it's like, well, let's examine our bias, our deep-rooted bias, like the foundational starting point beliefs that affect how we interpret reality.
Yeah. So yeah, because
For example, like many of these non-believers, as like a foundational starting point, they've already decided there's no supernatural anything. I don't know if you've talked to a lot of these people, but that's pretty consistent. I get that impression from them, and I've talked to thousands of atheists.
oh yeah, I've
Think
talked
about
to many atheists too.
if you've already decided there's nothing supernatural in the world before you even examine evidence, you will always interpret evidence to be like independent of any supernatural explanation. So they're not even like open-minded to the possibility of God. So we got to show that they're like not open-minded, they're not neutral, and that they're closed-minded.
I mean, I guarantee you, out of those atheists you spoke to, none of them conceded, huh? And like,
They're
almost
stubborn. They're all like Pharaoh. Like Pharaoh's the best example of like a stubborn person. Like all the stuff God did. Even at the end, he changed his mind and tried to go back and recapture the Jews and bring them back to Egypt. And then that's where they parted the Red Sea and all that. But
So I think
like Pharaoh didn't refuse. Yeah.
I think the point of like atheism is so like what they do too is like you can present them all the facts, but they won't believe just because they think that their beliefs make them different, and they think that they're living reality. So it's like an ego trip, you know. Oh, you need to believe in a God. We don't, because there's no, they go on that little spew, and it makes them have a big ego.
Well, Darth will say it's like the original sin is like thinking that they're independent of God, that they're
Right.
an autonomous operator in the world, but they're not. We're creaturely, we're contingent beings. So, yeah. But thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, bro. Keep doing your thing, bro.
Yeah, thank you. God bless.
God bless.
Are you back, Darth? Welcome, Basanta.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Hey, just chilling.
Good. Hey, I have a question.
Sure.
Your topic says God exists, and my question is, how do you know something exists?
How do I know something exists? Well, I know God exists due to the transcendental argument for God.
Argument about something does not make something exist. Existence. What is existence?
What is existence? I mean, that's hard to describe because it's like super foundational.
It's not hard if you understand English.
It's like the ability to have properties or something like that.
Yeah, something which exists has to be something which is factual and not supposed or imagined. So
Yes.
if you say God exists, it has to be a fact. It doesn't have to be supposed or imagined to argue about. The fact that you argue about makes it not existence, because whatever thing that exists has to be presented as a fact.
Well, God would be necessary for facts. So without God, there'd be no facts. Because facts require a theory of factness.
What?
To have a fact, you need a theory of factness. And God would be necessary as a part of your theory. You couldn't have a theory of factness without God as a part of the theory. So you can't have facts without God. What?
I'm not yet understanding what you're trying to say, because how will you suppose something and assume what you are supposing is a fact?
Because you can't have a fact in isolation. To have any fact, you need like multiple facts. See what I'm saying? So like to say I exist would have no meaning if I couldn't tell you like what I was. For the fact I exist, there has to be other facts, like what does it mean to be, and what is the I? That has to be able to be defined by another fact. So, because facts need relationship with each other, that means there needs to be like a unity to have facts, relationships. And God explains God is the relationships between things that explains the facts, because He grounds everything. He's the ground of being. And if you deny that, you have no ground of being to speak of, no relationship between facts, and no facts.
How did you know that?
It's a transcendental argument for God. It's like philosophy, epistemology. There's arguments. I think it's Willard Seller's argument in The Myth of the Given. It proves that you can't have a fact in isolation, that we need a web of facts, he calls it, to say something's true.
Can that same philosophy makes you prove that Santa Claus is real?
Santa Claus is not. What does Santa Claus have to do with anything? We're talking about God.
Because Santa Claus is as supposed as God. As a child, you believe that Santa Claus is real. Nobody can convince you. So
God is the creator of the universe. Did Santa Claus create the universe?
There are no normal, non-mentally defective adults who believe in Santa Claus.
I mean, you cannot convince a child that Santa Claus is not real, just like you cannot convince.
Okay, you completely ignored what I'm saying. Okay, so we have good reasons as adults to believe that Santa Claus does not exist. Do you have a good reason to believe that God does not exist?
Okay, so I have a good reason to believe that God does not exist. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Look,
Okay.
bringing up Santa Claus and the atheist-theist dispute is a sign of a lack of adeptness. Okay, it's just a form of sloganism. So if you're going to bring up that you disbelieve in God for the same reason as Santa Claus, well, we have good reasons to believe Santa Claus does not exist. Do you have good reasons to believe God doesn't exist?
Okay, if that is the case, then there's no big argument here. It's just that
Notice how you completely ignored my question.
No, I'm not ignoring. The fact is that maybe you're trying
Sir,
to
I
ignore
asked
what I'm
you.
saying.
Did I ask you a question?
No, you didn't ask me a question. You were giving
I
me an
did ask
explanation
you a
of why I
question.
should think
Look,
that
sir, I'm a moderator here, and if you persist in this deceitful evasiveness, you can giggle all you want. But I asked you a question 3 times. Now I'll ask you the question more time. Now, if you choose to just blatantly dodge my reasonable question as per your invocation of the Santa Claus argument, then I'll just dismiss you.
Can you just go ahead and ask the question and stop complaining?
Do you have a good reason to believe that God does not exist?
Yep.
Good. What is it?
Anything which exists has to be presented as in fact and not opposed or imagined. And here we are only talking about.
What you just said is nonsense.
Let me finish my statement.
It's complete nonsense.
Let me finish.
I want to hear a clear. I'm about to kick you. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're not giving me. You're just rambling at this point. I want
you.
Let me explain something to you. In order to falsify a proposition, right? Since God is a proposition or an identity state, in order to falsify a proposition or an identity state, you have to instantiate an identity statement or a proposition, which is the negator for the proposition in question. So what is your propositional statement that functions as the negator for God?
Because what I told you, whatever thing that exists has to be presented in fact and not opposed or imagined.
Okay, sir. All you're just making appeal to. Listen to me carefully. What you're presenting here. I'm trying. Okay, goodbye. Get rid of him. He's done. Okay, so this is the problem. They cannot think outside of their slogans.
Oh, that is the same excuse of
no. Sir, all you're just doing is appealing to incredulity. You're not presenting. Okay, listen carefully. You need to present an identity statement that functions as the negator for God.
How can you present an identity statement for something that does not exist?
Okay, all right. You're just stuck on stupid. Okay, you're done.
All right, I already know.
Okay, they're either inadvertently low information or they're purposely being low information. because they can't think outside of the box of their slogans. It's embarrassing talking to these people. They're totally clueless as to how inept they are.
Inevitability is the facet of humanity. It really is.
What's that?
I said being an inept is the facet of humanity. How smart you are is based off with a narrative for the certain specific time frame that you're.
Are you an atheist?
I am.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
I haven't figured it out yet. And see, in that concept,
so you're denying God without a rational basis?
no, I mean, there's a difference between atheist and agnostic. I mean,
So we're going to do the classic shape shifting here.
Hang on, you didn't ask me why I was an agnostic.
Did you self-identify as an atheist?
Born again Christian 2 times over, baptized, tried doing everything.
Okay, all right, yeah, we're gonna move on. You shouldn't be so drinking early in the day, okay?
No, my face, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. See, your judgmental thing that's the point of.
Okay. Yeah, he clearly showed signs of intoxication.
Howdy.
Welcome. Are you an atheist?
Yes.
Can you stop rattling your bag of chips, please?
Sure. I actually just wanted to come here
God?
and I wanted to thank you.
Yeah.
Because I've been searching for a know-it-all and I finally found one.
Well,
and
thank you.
I
That's a
just
nice
want to thank
compliment.
you for your
You're
super
welcome.
level of intelligence.
Well,
And
thank
that
you. I
you know
appreciate that.
everything.
Were you taking notes?
No, I took all the notes, and there's only one Bible quote that matters, and it's Romans 13:10, and most of you have forgotten about that one.
Yeah, and what's that?
Love does no harm to thy neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of God's law. Now go study it.
Uh-huh. And did you have anything substantive that you wanted to share with us other than your phoniness? Where do they grow these people? Amazing, isn't it?
Sorry, I'm on the phone. I'll add someone.
No, that's okay. Just another fool shows up and displays their ignorance.
Howdy again, Darth. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah. How do you say your name?
Tlacoyo.
I didn't understand you.
Tlacoyo?
No, still didn't get it. Are you an atheist?
Yeah.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
No. I mean, not really. I can't
So,
really.
well, neither can any other atheist.
Are you driving?
I'm in a vehicle. So, do you have a rational justification for there is no God?
Well, can we get into the grounds of what you consider rational?
Yeah, we're not going to play this little definitional game. Do you have a
Okay,
defense?
so
that
if
there
I
is no
give
God
you
or
if I
not?
give you my opinion
I'm
onto
about
why
to
I have a
kick you.
rational, I'll
I'm
say
about
the
to kick
thing.
you.
Oh my God! If I give you a rational opinion, will it be rational?
Goodbye.
Oh, you moron!
Okay.
Did you say a
TikTok is not
rational-
setting their finest.
Did you say a rational opinion? Is that what he said?
Why is it that so many of these males, sound like junior high school girls?
Well, in my rational opinion, it's because of arrested development.
I agree. I think you're spot on. But that guy Gregory was something else. He said he's 20. There's no way he was 20.
I was being very patient with him. He kept just like saying things that he didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
He didn't have the foggy look. These people are just accustomed to bickering with their peers, right? Just they're not accustomed to people dealing with a higher level of intelligence. With these metaphysical disputes.
Right. They don't understand the whole like power of our argument is it's anti-skeptical that the idea is you can't even like bicker about it. You can't deny it. We're saying things as undeniable, not controversial.
See, all they know are their atheist cliches. That's all they got. Welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
I do not know.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Yeah, so I haven't seen any evidence. I would say I'm just. I mean, yeah, this is like it's as simple as that. Like just me for me personally.
Yeah, this is the typical go-to response of atheists.
Sure.
So, are you saying that the world exemplifies independence from God?
I would say that it doesn't show a God to exist.
Does the world exemplify independence from God? Yes or no?
Could you explain that in layman terms? I don't understand.
Yeah, either the world is indicative of God and the world is evidence of God, therefore exemplifying dependence upon God, or not.
Okay,
which
so
would entail
independent.
that the world. I'm answering you. Okay, you asked me for an explanation, and I'm giving you one, but I haven't finished. So either it's the case that the world exemplifies dependence on and from God, or the world exemplifies independence from God. So when you say you see no evidence, that is the equivalent of saying the world exemplifies independence from God, correct?
Yeah. All right, sure.
Okay, good. How do you justify that any state of affairs exists with independence from God?
Okay, well, first of all, what's your definition of a God?
We're not playing this little game, okay? If you don't answer the question, I'm going to remove you.
It's not. I'm not playing a game. I'm just asking you.
Okay, sir, strike two. You get a third strike, I'm going to remove you. Answer the question. What is your justification that the world exemplifies dependence upon God? I'm well accustomed with the diversionary questions that atheists give when they feel uncomfortable about answering a legitimate question. What is your justification that the world exemplifies independence from God?
Okay. I don't really have an answer because I don't have a.
So you don't have a defense for your claim that you see no evidence.
Well,
because to say I see no evidence is the equivalent of saying the world exemplifies independence from God. So you don't have a justification for the statement I see no evidence, then, do you?
Okay. Well,
or maybe your position is actually worse than that. That you're just saying is that you're in a state of ignorance. Is that what it is?
No. I'm just saying that.
Okay, so you're not in a state of ignorance. Okay, good. Can you give me a rational explanation of how the world exemplifies independence from God?
Okay, sure. I'll give you the problem of evil. Evil is my justification for there being no God.
That doesn't demonstrate ontologically that something exists with independence from God, because the Creator could have a plan which He allows temporarily evil to occur and then vanquish it. So the instance of evil is not a negator for the existence of God. Let me ask you this question, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, can God be known if He purposes not to be known?
I didn't hear you say. Could you repeat that, please?
Can God be known if He purposes not to be known?
I mean, assuming God's all powerful, He can do whatever He wants. So yeah.
Now, sir, I want a straight answer. If God, in a world where God would exist and He purposes not to be known, could He be known?
No.
It's not a trick. I agree with you. It's not a trick question. So in a realm that is without revelation and disclosure of God, God could not be known, right? So we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. You're claiming you're not in a realm of revelation of God, that the world doesn't indicate God?
Yes.
Okay. So since you're not in a realm of revelation of God from God to us, then God cannot be known in any respect. Therefore, since you've conceded you're not in a realm of revelation where God reveals himself, you would not be able to say what is or is not compatible with God. Do you realize your mistake?
Yeah, because I'm denying the existence. Yeah.
Do you realize the mistake that you made?
Honestly, not really. I'm not really following your
Well,
argument.
if you say that X is compatible with God or X is not compatible with God, you would be saying that you could have some knowledge of God were he to exist. So in a world where you say you're not in an environment of revelation of God, then you couldn't know anything of or about God. Therefore, you couldn't know what would be or would not be compatible with God.
Well, but you're assuming that God exists.
You've just
based on that.
listen to me. You've just been TKO'd and you don't even know it.
Okay. I mean, I'm
Okay?
just,
And
I feel like
I'm
you're
not
just assuming.
I'm not trying to be mean. I'm
I,
trying to
I
be mean.
I know. I just feel like you're assuming that God exists by asking me that question.
No, sir, it doesn't. No, the issue does not matter about what my position is. You've still been TKO'd, right? Once you concede that you're in a non-revelatory environment, then you forfeit the rational ability to assert what would or would not be compatible with God.
Okay, and I'll just give you a simpler explanation.
Do you accept?
Sure. Yeah.
That you forfeit the ability to say what is compatible or incompatible with God in a non-revelatory environment? Okay, therefore you can't use the so-called problem of evil.
Okay. All right. So I'll use a different explanation. I would say that I reject the possibility of a God because
God wouldn't be a possibility. That would be a category error.
Okay. I reject the existence of a God. I reject the existence of a God.
Good. On what rational grounds?
On just pure.
You see, you have no answer. That's why you're
I'm trying to think of a better.
No, you have none. Atheists don't have any. That's why they invoke cliches and slogans. That's why 99.9% of all atheists, when asked to give an account of why there's no God, almost all of them say, because there's no evidence for God. You tried that and you failed to support that, didn't you?
Well, I still don't really know what your defense.
Sir, did you fail to support the maxim that there's no evidence for God?
I still don't really understand.
Did you rationally support your claim that there's no evidence for God?
Well, I mean, there is.
Yeah, you see, I guess what you're not getting, I think you are getting it, but you're pretending that you're not, that I'm quite experienced in this line of debate, and you're fumbling miserably because you don't know what to say.
I don't debate. I mean, I'm just on here.
Well, you're fumbling right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like
you're
a professional
literally
debater,
fumbling
bro.
because you realize that your atheist cliches don't work on me.
I'm just not a professional debater. I mean, I don't do this for a living.
Okay, well, I don't do it for a living either.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm
just asking you to give me. I'm asking you to give me a justification that there is no God. Can you do that?
I require evidence. I mean,
okay, that's not an answer to my question. That's an evasive response. So you require, when we talk about God, we're talking about a model of reality, which would be the God world, right? God isn't just an entity. It would represent the creator-creature distinction, the God world. So you require evidence for that?
Well, okay, this goes back to the beginning.
Listen to me. If I ask you very simple, non-controversial questions, then you should be able to answer it quickly without trying to give me the runaround. Do you require evidence for the God world?
For the God world, like the supernatural world?
Yeah, and if you require evidence for God, it's the same thing as the God world.
Okay, yes, I would require evidence for that.
Okay, but you're operating from the not God world?
Yes.
Good. What's the evidence for that?
You mean just the world we live in?
What is the evidence? What is the evidence that the not God world is true?
Because I can see it. I live in it currently.
What do you see that exists with independence from God?
I mean, I would just say consciousness. The world around me is the non-God world.
Yeah, well, I agree with you that there's a world around us. I see the world too. You haven't given me an unpacking of how any state of affairs that you come into contact with exists with independence from God. How is anything that you see or experience exemplify independence from God?
Because they just exist. I mean, I don't. They just exist, and they don't necessarily have to be indicative of a God.
You didn't give me a substantive answer. That was just empty rhetoric that you just came out of your mouth. I want you to explain to me. I want you to explain to me. You see, this is what you people do. When you get cornered with relevant questions that you have no answer to, you just start rambling borderline incoherently. Oh, they just exist. They just exist. How is saying they just exist an unpacking of how any state of affairs exists with independence from God? You have yet to answer the question. So we'll try again. What state of affairs that you can document or justify exists with complete and utter independence from God?
I reject the existence of God, so everything.
That's not an answer. Again, that's just
it is
a
an answer. It is an
response.
Answer. You're assuming,
Okay, yeah,
you're presupposing
dude,
a God
look,
exists.
either you're being blatantly dishonest at this point, attempting to save face. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm probably close to 3 times your age. Okay, and you're just giving me rambling, nonsensical answers. So either you're being deceptive or you're a very low information person.
The question you're asking me, you're presupposing a God exists.
You haven't given me a substantive explanation how any state of affairs exists with independence from God.
Because
I'm still waiting.
I reject. You're assuming a God exists when you ask that question.
I already know you reject it.
Yes, you're assuming. When you ask me that question, you are assuming.
You see, this is what inevitably all of you atheists do. When you get cornered by these simple questions, you just start bickering like 15-year-olds at the cafeteria table. We're going to try this again, okay? Giving me a vague response is not an answer. I want you to explain to me with specificity how you determine that any state of affairs exists with complete independence from God.
I mean, I can't really give you an answer because I don't believe in a God.
So you okay? I know you don't. So
Yes.
What you're saying is that you have no rational defense for your atheism, do you?
Because I use the natural world around me. When you say the natural world, does that mean a natural world existing with independence from God? Yes.
How did you determine that?
Because again, I don't see evidence of a God.
That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
How?
An appeal to ignorance fallacy is that a proposition is true if it hasn't been falsified. Your position is that the world exists with independence from God because it hasn't been falsified. That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy. Do you need me to explain to you again what an appeal to ignorance fallacy is?
I understand that, yeah.
Okay, you have committed an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
Sure.
Good. So I'm still waiting for you to explain to me how you determine the world exists with independence from God.
I mean,
your atheist cliches don't work upon somebody who has a higher degree of education in metaphysics. You see? That's all you. Hold on, I gotta switch my headset. I'll be right with you.
It's basically you just can't rationally deny God, and Christians have a rational defense. So it's like,
yeah.
Okay, I'm back. So you have yet to explain to me with specificity how you determine the world exists with independence from God. Because either when you say there's no evidence for God, either you are invoking that you're in a state of ignorance, or that the world can be invoked as actual and intelligible in a state of independence from God. And since you asserted earlier that the world does represent independence from God, I'm asking you to explain how you determine that. Can you do that?
I tried to give it in as simple terms as I could, but I mean, I'm just not.
You haven't given me any specificity. Do you have any specificity of how you determine that any state of affairs exists with independence from God?
Well, can I first just tell you how I
Can you first answer my question that you're repeatedly dodging?
Can you please just let me talk, please?
No, I'll let you talk as if you're going to answer my question.
I'm going to answer your question. I need to elaborate a little bit.
If you're not going to answer my question, you're going to be removed.
I'm going to answer your question. Can you please just let me elaborate?
No, you're not. You're going to do it right. No, you're not going to do it. You're going to do it right now. Tell me why the world exists with independence from God. Last chance.
I'm
Goodbye.
Okay.
You see? Did you see what was going on there, P. Mars? There was a concerted effort to filibuster, rabbit trail, and obfuscate when he was stymied by a simple, reasonable question as per his position. Because he no longer had viable cliches to throw out there. So what he attempted to do was verbally bamboozle me by filibustering and rabbit trailing. That's their go-to tactic. Just keep on talking as though you're saying something substantive when you're not.
Yeah, they're constantly diverting, like not focusing on what is being presented.
See, I asked the same question. Look, I wasn't the one who asserted there's no evidence for God, right? So either the statement there's no evidence for God is a stipulation of incredulity, where you're just in a state of ignorance, or it's a statement not affirming incredulity, but that it's a statement that the world is to be regarded as independent of God until shown otherwise. So in other words, I accept that the world is independent from God until you present me evidence. So God does not exist until you
Where's the
demonstrate
evidence?
to me that the world. What is the evidence?
Where's the evidence?
The evidence is that the world exemplifies that which actualizes it, and
That's not evidence. That is a hypothesis based off of your feelings.
Listen to me. Can you explain to me why 9 times out of 10 atheists are rude and obnoxious and interruptive? You ask me a question.
There's Christians in the comments saying that you are turning people away.
Goodbye.
Idiot, you're
Goodbye. So he asked me to give an explanation of what the evidence for God is. I'm right in the midst of explaining to him what the evidence for God is, and he immediately machine gun overtalks me. You see, if they had a cogent defeater for God, they would give it. They wouldn't be always asserting, what's the evidence? What's the evidence? Well, why are you demanding the evidence when you have a cogent line of reasoning that God doesn't exist? Why not just simply just say your belief in God is fallacious, and it's fallacious because of X, Y, Z?
Or maybe
what they're doing is they're hiding behind the incredulity card, the aggressive incredulity card, without giving a robust defeater for God's existence. Because if they had a robust defeater for God's existence, they wouldn't demand that you give evidence. Okay?
Yeah.
If I had a robust defeater for aliens, right? If I had one, right? I wouldn't keep on saying to somebody, what's your evidence for alien? What's your evidence for aliens? I would just say, listen, your belief in aliens is fallacious because aliens cannot exist because of X, Y, Z. But they don't do that.
They want to
They
frame.
don't have a robust defeater for God's existence.
Yeah, so they want to frame. They want to frame the debate as if they're just like unconvinced.
That they want to frame the debate that. And by the way, I really encourage you. I don't know where it is on my drive, but the paper is called Atheological Apologetics. Really recommend that you read it. And he talks about that atheists make a number of mistakes. One of which is they adopt in the dialectic
Is that Van
they're
Til?
operating in the default position.
Is that Van? Who
Right?
wrote that one? Van Til?
No. This was I think it's even a secular paper. I don't even know that the author is a Christian. The author might be a Christian, but I'm not asserting that they are. I haven't even finished the paper. I'm about halfway to 3/4 through. It's called. If you want, I'll send you the highlighted version of the paper when I get home. I'll send it to you on Discord. It's called Atheological Apologetics.
Yeah,
And he
I'll
said,
have a
first
look
of all,
after I send it. Yeah,
yeah, can you speak louder?
I'll have a look if you send it on Discord. Yeah, I'll look at it.
Okay, yeah. So in the paper, he points out that atheists adopt or assume that atheism or, quote, unbelief is the default position. Now, the problem with that is they cannot demonstrate that it is the default position. But even if it were, it wouldn't follow that something is a default position, that it would be true. Because something is a default position for any number of reasons, culturally, sociologically, historically, ancestrally, nationalistically, okay? So, but they haven't shown that their position is the default position, right?
They want to frame the debate like it is, and well, when they keep asking, they always say there's no evidence for God. There's no evidence for God. You hear it all the time. So then I try to frame it that, well, you're saying that evidence can exist independent of God. I'm staking out that God is necessary for evidence.
Okay, so I agree with you, but this level of metaphysical reasoning is above their pay grade. They're not, 99% of them, they're not capable of understanding this level of metaphysical thinking, right? What the reason why they resort to what's the evidence, or to say there's no evidence, is because they don't actually have a cogent defeater for the existence of God. If they had one, they wouldn't demand evidence. They would just say, your God doesn't exist because of X, Y, Z. Okay? So when they say there's no evidence...
It seems like the vast majority, they haven't thought about evidence beyond whatever science says is evidence. Like, that's their idea of evidence, too.
Well, first of all, the absence of evidence is evidence of absence is a maximum that people need to wield with great care, because that's only true in certain instances and not all instances. William Lane Craig hit that question to Christopher Hitchens, and Christopher Hitchens was smart enough not to challenge Craig on this point, lest Craig, body slam him. So the point is, when they say there's no evidence for God, this is just a slogan and a cliche, something that is not substantive. So when they say there's no evidence for God, either they're extolling that they're in a state of ignorance, therefore you couldn't conclude that God doesn't exist, or when they say that there's no evidence for God, they're saying the world is to be regarded as an exemplar of independence from God until shown otherwise. So they're smuggling in the not God world as a default position without justifying it, and then asking you to falsify that.
If they say they're in a state of ignorance, aren't they removing themselves from the debate?
Say that again?
If they go like, well, I'm in a state of ignorance, wouldn't they be removing themselves from the debate, the discussion at that point?
Well, they would just simply be shape-shifting, trying to insulate themselves from defending what their real position is.
Oh,
yeah, so what happens is agnostics are God deniers who want to pretend that they're not denying God, and
Okay, I see
self-identifying
what you're.
atheists.
Yeah, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But you see, most of these people, they will self-identify as an atheist. But then when you start questioning their position and their slogans don't hold up, they shapeshift to the agnostic position, whether or not they openly use that label. They just go. They shapeshift to. Oh, I'm just unconvinced.
But we know that's the same difference. So it doesn't matter.
Well, telling me you're unconvinced is not really informative, because every self-identifying atheist that denies the existence of God is unconvinced of God's existence. So when you say you're unconvinced, does that entail the denial of God, or not the denial of God, but you're just in a state of ignorance? Okay. You see, if they had a robust defeater for God, they would give one. They don't actually have a robust defeater for God, so they play the incredulity card. It's, oh, I'm unconvinced. You're the one. They're in effect saying you're the one introducing a novel overlay of God. But to take that stance is to smuggle in God denialism without being transparent that that's what you're operating from. Right? As though they're in a neutral or default position, neither of which is true.
Welcome, Kanoa. What would you like to say?
Hey guys, Darth, I was wondering if you could go into more detail again on.
I don't like your attitude, Kanoa.
I don't have evidence.
Answer the question, Kanoa.
I don't know. So funny. The last guy you talked to, I think his name was like Mitchell or something. I liked how the argument they used, but I kind of missed it, and I was trying to take notes, so I was wondering if you could go in more detail again.
Well, I'm sorry. The first round, it's free. The second time around, you got to pay.
Deal. You said you challenged him, and you said, "Can God be known if His purpose is not to be known?" And you used that to show how He can't use the problem of evil because of that.
Well, if God can't be known, then if God can't be known, how would you be able to determine what is or is not compatible with God?
I actually wrote down what Darth said there. He said, if you concede you're in a non-revelatory environment, then you can't say X is incompatible or X is compatible with God, since we only know God exists or we only know God through revelation. Basically,
right.
So when they hypothesize or they assert what would or would not be compatible with God, how would you know what states of affairs would be compatible with God unless God, to some degree or another, reveals Himself?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good answer.
It's a devastating critique, and it's such a simple question. It's easy to remember and easy to reply. If you claim that God is not known, so if I tell you chocolate ice cream cones with sprinkles are incompatible with Blue, how would I know that ice cream cones with chocolate sprinkles are incompatible with Blue when Blue is not known?
And Bonson would say also to point out that if they do the problem of evil, that on their worldview there is no evil, whereas Christians can account for evil.
Yeah.
Right,
Evil
and that's the route
would
I
require
took
an
last night when I was talking to an atheist.
Yeah.
But I liked how Darth worded that, because I thought that was I guess it was like, it seems simpler to explain to somebody on the way that you put that, Darth.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for that.
Yeah, there's a book I'm just reading again. I haven't finished it, but I started it and I put it down. I'm trying to remember. The book is called, what's the title? Revelation something by William, I think it's William Demarest. Okay. And he just, in the opening chapter, he talks about, in order for God to be known, God has to take the initiative. So if they're in a non-revelatory environment, how could they tell what or would not be compatible with God? Right? When we read the biblical revelation, God explains over and over again what things are or are not compatible with him. So absent God revealing himself, how would you know what would be compatible with him? So
Right.
that's a quick defeater for them making any judgment about God. And then if they say, well, if we're talking about the God of the Bible, say, well, good. God already says that these things are compatible with him on a temporary basis because he's allowing it to fulfill his plan of creation and redemption. So the God of the Bible says that even things that he does not want to happen are going to be compatible with him allowing it temporarily until he has judgment day and he recreates the world and vanquishes evil forever. So they can't reference the God of the Bible and saying evil is incompatible with him when he reveals that it is compatible with him allowing it as per his plan.
Right.
All right, thank you guys. You guys have a good live.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, look, they're so used to invoking cliches and slogans.
Hey, Darth, I was wondering, could I argue? So you know how I don't know. I sent you all that stuff about like the curse of Ham. So the slaveholders in America would argue that because of the curse of Ham, they were justified, but that's just like a debunked sort of like racist interpretation.
No, they're not. These are probably people who weren't even Christians to begin with.
What I was thinking, so you know how like Christians today try to comport the Bible to fit science with like they say the days represent 1 billion years or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
What could we say like the Christians, back then tried to comport the Bible to like the racist science?
Well, in that day, all they had was the King James Bible.
Yeah, and there's no slave word in it.
And there's no, they didn't, only the modern 20th century translation used the word slave.
Yeah, so they said.
So they would be dealing with it would be servant, so that they wouldn't be able to rely on the childish, superficial approach as the TikTok atheists do by going, look, it says slave.
Right.
See, it says slave.
Right. So
if it's that obvious, why is it that scholar Peter J. Williams, who's an eminent biblical scholar, wrote a scholarly paper pointing out that the word that's translated slavery in the 20th century translation is a neutral term. It just means a servant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that you're going to have to dig deeper into any specific context to explain that it's a form of servitude that is forced and involuntary.
Do you think that makes sense though? What my line of thinking about how Christians were trying to make the Bible fit science at the time?
I would necessarily honor them with the title of Christians.
Well, I guess I would agree. I'd say they'd be fake.
Because if you're really a Christian, Jesus said when he first spoke that he came to set the captives free.
Right, I agree.
And, if we were slaves to sin and God sets us free by his grace, why wouldn't you want to free those who are enslaved when they themselves had been freed from the slavery and bondage and the condemnation before God, where we're set free?
Right.
I would have great difficulty believing that they were genuine born again believers.
Yeah, they're hypocrites. They're doing the opposite of what Jesus would do. Yeah, exactly. Welcome.
Yeah.
Invited.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, are you an atheist?
I am an atheist.
Can you tell me why?
Because I never got the calling of faith that is required to believe in the Christian God.
That's not what the Bible says. What's the fifth book in the New Testament?
I couldn't tell you. I don't remember. I've read the Bible.
So if you can't tell me what the fifth book in the New Testament is, first of all, the Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible teaches that all men know and believe that God exists, but that those who reject that are suppressing the truth and unrighteousness through a
Yeah,
form
but
of self-gaslighting.
there's a huge difference. I mean, you're talking about your God. You're talking about this Christian God.
Okay, what
The
you're
God.
you're baiting and switching right now.
No.
The topic du jour.
Okay.
The topic du jour was your rational justification that there is no creator. Go.
I'm sorry. Repeat that again.
Yeah. You're dealing with somebody who has 14 years of dealing on a daily basis with atheists. So the verbal diversionary tactics don't work with me.
Well,
So
no,
your
there doesn't
mission,
have to
should
be.
you choose to,
There doesn't have to be an
please don't
adversarial
interrupt.
relationship
Please,
here. I'm not trying to.
Please do not. No, I'm not being adversarial, but I'm confronting you with your evasiveness. Now, please tell me why there's no creator.
There's no proof. There's no evidence of a creator, and I'm an evidence-based person. You have faith.
Okay.
You have faith that your creator exists. Faith and evidence are two entirely different things. Faith is the language. Faith is the language of religion.
Sir, stop. Please stop. I've heard this empty rhetoric all along. It's very easy to dismantle what you've just said. Now, when you say there's no evidence, are you making a statement that you're ignorant as to whether anything indicates God? Or when you say there's no evidence for God, you're saying the world exemplifies independence from God?
I'm saying that evidence is a science.
No, answer. I asked you a question. If you dodge one more time, I'm going to remove you. When you say there's no, okay, please do not interrupt me. Interrupt me while I'm talking. Here on out, I will kick you. Now, when you say, I asked you to explain why there's what. All right, he's gone.
He said just kicked me, so I kicked him. He said just kick me.
Okay. So you see, this is one of their tactics, is being verbally disruptive if they don't get their own way, and if they encounter somebody who's smarter than they are in the dialectic, and their diversionary tactics don't work, then they become disruptive. Okay. So the fact of the matter is, I asked him, explain to me how there's no God. He said there's no evidence for God. Okay, is that a statement of ignorance, or are you asserting that the world exemplifies independence from God? Which is it? And because he didn't want to answer either way, because it would implicate himself, he decided to be disruptive. It's that simple. You see, your atheist cliches don't work on experienced Christian apologists. We've heard these cliches all before.
I probably shouldn't. Oh, here we can. Okay,
Hey.
Hello, you're.
Hey, what's up?
What's up? Do you accept God as your creator?
So I just want to clarify. I'm very spiritual, even somewhat of a Christian mystic, but I do not believe in the Christian God. Can we still have this conversation?
Okay, so do you believe that there is a creator?
Yes.
Okay, and who is your creator?
That creator is like the benign metaphysical force that permeates existence.
And how would you know that?
You know God not by thinking about God or having thoughts about God, but by feeling the reality of oneness. It comes in.
You mean like indigestion or farting?
Like indigestion?
Yeah, you feel indigestion or
gas. Yeah, exactly. Like it's like a feeling state. Yeah.
Okay, get out of here. You're done.
Okay.
Yeah, he's full of crap.
There's some strange spiritual types that I run into. Like a guy today told me he was the son of God.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
on the internet, we meet a lot of weird people.
Good afternoon or morning, whatever it is where you're at.
I don't have my reading glasses on. What's your username?
My name is Derek Landry.
Derek, are you an atheist?
I think I've been on the show before. I think I'm on the agnostic area.
Okay, so you're claiming you're suspending judgment about the existence of God?
Well, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by that.
Derek, have you made a judgment that God does or does not exist? Have you made that judgment?
Well, my answer would be similar, but a little more lengthy than your last.
Derek, have you made a judgment? Have you not made a judgment either way?
When you're talking about God as quantified and qualified in the Christian Bible, I have made a judgment. Yes.
Derek, why do you answer questions that weren't asked of you? Have you
Because
made
I feel
neither?
if I say yes or no, I'm not actually answering the question.
Goodbye. You're done. You see, this is what they do. When you ask a clarifying question, they dodge the answer, pretending they're answering it when they're not. Then you repeat the question again. Then they just double down and become more obstinate. So we're done with you, okay?
Oh, this woman claimed she was agnostic today, and I brought out this meme. She's like, "Oh, you were ready for me."
Yeah, well, that's what they frequently do. They self-identify as an atheist, and then they shapeshift to being an agnostic, or agnostics are atheists who pretend not to be. You ask them, so you're not making a judgment either way that God does or does not exist? A simple question. They can't even answer God does or does not exist. A simple question. They can't even answer the simplest of questions. But here's one thing. They claim they're agnostic, but they've decided there is no God in whom has made himself. They claim they're agnostic, but they've decided there is no God in whom has made himself unambiguously clear. They're not agnostic about that God. So they've denied one of two conceptual ranges of God's existence, a God who makes himself unambiguously clear and a God who doesn't. So they claim they're agnostic. Well, you're not agnostic toward a God who makes himself unambiguously clear.
Welcome, NS. Do you accept God as your creator?
I do not know.
Can you explain why there's no God?
I just wanted to clarify with your old question of
You're not going to clarify anything. You're going to answer the question.
Yeah, I want to answer the one of the independence of God that you were saying earlier.
No, sir, you're going to answer the question, and then later on, if you want clarification, okay? Can you have a rationale why
your
God?
Old question though.
Goodbye, Ennis.
You're a coward.
Okay. No, I'm not a coward. I'm somebody who doesn't like people being disrespectful. That when I ask them a question, they completely ignore the question. So don't confuse my adult response to you as being cowardice. I'm just not going to tolerate, adolescent evasiveness.
He said he wanted to argue that something could exist with the independence of God or something like that. I think is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he has a goose that lays golden eggs too. And he also has a perpetual motion machine. Yeah, he's working on the drawings for the patent.
Welcome, Tyrone.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Do you accept God as your creator, Tyrone?
No.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Yeah, so I think my reason is pretty much because I don't think there's an argument that shows the coherency between, I guess, God's titles and his decision to kickstart creation.
That's a non sequitur. That doesn't justify there's no God. So you want to try again?
So can you explain what a non sequitur is? My apologies.
A non sequitur it does not follow from the reasoning. The conclusion doesn't follow from the reasoning. The fact that you're unpersuaded by a line of reasoning, it doesn't logically follow from that God doesn't exist. I could quote you Kai Nielsen. Okay, Kai Nielsen from Reason and Practice, a book on philosophy. How all of the reasons for God might fail, but it still might be the case that God exists. If somebody uses faulty reasoning to a conclusion, it doesn't mean that the conclusion is necessarily false. It just means that the reasoning doesn't support the conclusion.
Right. That's what I guess I'm trying to say is that I don't think there is a reason, a coherent reason for that.
Okay. And, okay. Well, that's fine. That doesn't get you to justifying the not God world. So how do you account that the not God world is true? See, atheist cliches don't work on me. I have
Well,
14 years of experience debating atheists.
Well, I mean, I don't know how that's a cliche. It's just that there. Can you provide a reasonable justification for?
I'm still waiting. Okay, you're dodging at this point. Do you have a justification that the not God world is true?
I think you're dodging my question, kind of. I don't know, like.
So the answer is you don't have a justification for your God denialism?
Well, I do. People have made claims, and I'm trying to refute that claim by saying there is not coherent. There's no reasonable.
You're repeating the same thing that you first started with. The fact that you're unpersuaded by their line of reasoning, it doesn't follow from that God doesn't exist.
So can we speak about that line of reasoning? So that's the only way we can know something.
No, you're not getting this. You're not focusing, right? Telling me that you're unpersuaded by their reasoning whereby they conclude God exists, or that you say that their reasoning is faulty and then they conclude that God exists, it doesn't follow from either you being unconvinced or that you identify that they have faulty reasoning, therefore God doesn't exist. Both of those are non sequiturs.
But it means that specific God could possibly not exist, right?
Are you focusing? Okay, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to explain to me why there's no creator.
I mean, I keep giving. Well,
do you have a justification that there's no creator?
Well, yeah, I think there's no God that seeks a personal relationship with us. There's no.
You're just restating the same claim again. I'm asking you to justify that.
Right, so I'm saying that the book that tells us that he exists is faulty, and we can talk about that.
We're not talking. Yeah, again, you're committing the same mistake you did at the beginning, telling me that there's faulty reasoning about the existence of God does not entail that God doesn't exist. So, do you have a justification that God does not exist?
Yeah, but how else can you know? Right, you have to address the faulty claim.
Sir, is English your first language?
Yeah.
Okay, please tell me why there's no God.
Well, I mean, I guess that's what I was going to talk about, but I guess that doesn't fit the topic.
I'm not hearing a clear answer. You told me you're an atheist. You take the position that there is no God.
Agnostic.
I want you to. So now we're gonna do the atheist shuffle now. Now you're gonna shapeshift from being an atheist to an agnostic. Well, I've got bad news for you. Okay, do you accept and assert the necessity of God?
No, that's the whole point of being agnostic. You don't have the information.
So
you have to address what is present.
Focus, sir. I'm a little bit educated on the subject. So you refuse to accept the necessity of God. Is that correct?
Right, because the info I've been provided seems to be faulty, and we can talk about it.
So, sir, talking fast isn't going to help you. Okay, so you do not accept the necessity of God. To not accept the necessity of God is to deny the existence of God. So you can no longer maintain that you're suspending judgment. You can no longer maintain your agnosticism is legitimate because you deny effectively the necessity of God. To deny the necessity of God is to deny the existence of God. So please tell me why there's no God.
Because I'm denying the existence of your specific Trinitarian
Sir,
God.
I didn't give you. So what you're doing is you're baiting and switching now. What we're talking about is your position that there is no God. So please tell me why there's no God.
My apologies. I thought we were talking about the Christian God. That's why I came on. I didn't know it was just general question.
Now you're lying.
No, I was talking about the Christian God.
Sir, listen to me. I wasn't born yesterday. Don't try to bamboozle me. I wasn't born yesterday.
What do you think I was talking about?
Okay. Goodbye, Tyrone.
I have a transcendental argument question. Please, can I?
No, you're done. When you lie to me, you're done.
Nobody lied.
Yeah. See, then he's lying again that he wasn't lying to me. When you lie to me, when you do the classic bait and switch, and then you lie about that, I'm done with you. You see, this is the little game that they play. They shape shift from global atheism to local atheism.
Hi.
Are you an atheist?
Yes.
All right, goodbye. You're done. All right.
Hello.
Hello. Are you an atheist?
Yes, I'm agnostic atheist.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a stupid compound term. Do you accept the
Can
necessity
you
of God?
explain why it's stupid?
Yeah, because it's a contradiction in terms. Atheism in the standard
Not really.
reference works. I'm trying to. Did you ask me to explain it to you?
Well, I did, but you didn't
All
give
right.
much of an
Okay. Good.
explanation.
So, okay, sir, interrupt me one more time while I'm answering your question, and I will kick you. Now, agnostic atheist is a stupid compound term, and the reason why is an atheist is somebody who has made a judgment about God. An agnostic is somebody who self-identifies as not making a judgment either way about God. So to call yourself an agnostic atheist is a contradiction in terms.
Can I explain it?
No, you can't, because it's a
Why can't I explain it?
I'll go over through it one more time.
You don't
If
need to.
somebody is
Like,
an
you got it
okay,
wrong.
goodbye.
Oh my! Such a coward.
Okay, no, not a coward. I'm not going to deal with somebody who's uneducated on the matter, and I've explained to him why it's a contradiction in terms. Okay, an atheist is somebody who self-identifies as making a judgment about the non-existence of God. An agnostic is somebody who claims they're not making a judgment about the existence of God. So claiming you're an agnostic atheist is to put two words together to form a contradiction, where you're making a judgment, but you're not making a judgment. Okay? Telling me that you believe that God does not exist, but you don't know is irrelevant. Okay? If you believe that God does not exist, you're an atheist. You're making a judgment. An agnostic is somebody who claims they're not making a judgment.
Like sometimes they'll say like I'm a weak atheist, which is redundant, or they'll say I'm a strong atheist, which is an oxymoron. So
no, this is just cringe talking with these people. So the point is the reason why they call it is because they listen to these stupid, YouTube videos by atheists. I'm an agnostic atheist. I believe there's not a God, but I don't know. Well, that doesn't make you agnostic. And an agnostic is not simply limited to knowing rather than believing, because Thomas Henry Huxley, who invented the term agnosticism, says agnostic is someone who claims neither to know or to believe in a proposition without sufficient rational support or evidentiary support. Right? So, look, these people are it's sad.
is this Lucario, the young philosophy genius?
Yeah, I prefer Prodigy, but Genius is fine.
Yeah, he's a prodigy. This is Lucario. He's a genius.
Hi, Darth. I think Darth is really smart too.
Yeah. Are you an atheist?
I am an atheist, yeah.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
I can explain exactly why. Do you accept laws of classical logic?
Okay, sir, listen to me. If I ask you a question and you dodge the question, I'm going to remove you.
Well, I was asking.
Now, do you have a justification for the not God world?
Yeah, I do have justification.
Good. Then give it to me.
Wonderful. I need to make sure we're on the same page. Does that sound fine? Oh, what we mean by justification?
If you do not start in the next 5 seconds explaining to me why there is no God, I'm going to remove you.
Okay, that's fine. So, premise 1, if there's no logical contradiction in God existing, then God exists in some logically possible world, right?
So, repeat that again to me.
If there's no logical contradiction in God existing, then God exists in some logically possible world.
That's it.
Premise 2, there is no logical contradiction in God existing, therefore God exists in some existential, logically possible world.
Yeah, you're not making
Premise 3,
making any sense. Look, dude, you're not making any sense at all.
well, that was logic.
That's barely intelligible.
That
I
was
want you
modus
to explain
ponens.
to me I want you to give me intelligible terms.
That was an inference
Okay.
rule.
Okay, listen to me. It was barely intelligible. I want you to explain to me in clear terms why there's no God.
Hold on, I didn't give the conclusion yet. I didn't finish the
So
argument.
I'm about to kick you.
You're running away.
I want you to explain to me. I want you to explain to me in layman's terms why there's no God in an intelligible way, not in jibber jabber. Okay, I'm not
Which
running
word
away.
did I
don't
use
put
that
up with
was
people.
jibber jabber?
Okay,
I'm not
sir,
sure that you
listen
could
to me.
debunk
Okay,
with me that
goodbye,
well.
goodbye,
Darth Dawkins, the dumb fuck, running away. Goodbye, dumb fuck.
There we go. And the mask comes off. Did you see that, folks? The mask comes off. He was trolling the whole time, folks. Okay. What they hide behind is a jibber jabber syllogism that is barely intelligible. It's like, what does that even mean? Yeah, giving me a barely intelligible syllogism doesn't cut the mustard.
Can I? Is my mic working?
It is.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about the guy a few guys ago.
Well, before you do, please show a little respect. I want you to give me a justification for why you are not an Apple fanboy. Did Steve Jobs insult you in your earlier life?
No. I'm agnostic about Apple. I lack belief in Apple. No, I have an iPhone, Darth. You know that, right?
I know. I'm just busting your chops.
Well, the guy a few guys ago was trying to attack the Christian God, and show the Christian God is false by attacking the Bible. But the problem is that when he makes the evaluation that something in the Bible is false, if it's the case that Christian God exists, then his evaluation is just wrong. So in order to establish any of his evaluations about the Bible are correct, then he would first have to establish that the Christian God does not exist. So he would have to establish the Christian God does not exist in some way independent of attacking the truth or falsity of the Bible. So he's got the order reversed.
Yeah, because if you start from the presupposition that the God of the Bible exists and that he's revealed the Bible, then any passages that we come across that are problematic are just that. They're problematic. They will not entail a real contradiction, but a difficulty that we will have to eventually overcome by either further study or it will be resolved in the next life. So saying that there's a contradiction, if you start from the premise,
I was going to say that if you say that in the Bible there actually is a real problem, then you're starting from the unspoken premise that the Christian God does not exist. But that's what you're supposed to be defending in order to defend that there's actually a problem.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many alleged Bible contradictions that they have thrown out when I've investigated them. They don't hold up. Like Justin from the deconstruction zone or center, whatever you call them. Okay, he said that there was a contradiction with John 1:29 having to do with John the Baptist and Jesus. But when I investigated it, he's assuming that the John 1:29 is referring to the same encounter that John the Baptist had with Jesus when he baptized Jesus, and this was not a second iteration of Jesus encountering John, right? And John is speaking in the past tense. So the point is, when they cite these alleged contradictions, when we investigate them, right, they just evaporate.
Amazes me, like this last guy who you're calling the genius, P. Mars. They come up, they talk, yet they just never get around to giving us a rational justification. They just never get around to it.
I was just saying
He just had this. Yeah, that I could tell the sarcasm in P. Mars's voice because all he had was this pre-memorized, barely intelligible syllogism. Look, I'm not a stupid person, but his syllogism was barely intelligible. It's like, what are you even talking about? Okay.
How can
And then when I asked him,
where can
Go
you
ahead.
get how does he get to metaphysical claims like philosophy when we need revelation to say
How do inference rules apply in a not God world? How are there logical inference rules? How is there logical entailment? How is there correlativeness or connectiveness between any one thing or another? In order for there to be inference rules, it requires that there's some imposition ontologically of unity. What imposes unity at any stage? Oh, that's right. I see books on my shelf.
reality is reality?
Reality. I was in an atheist stream earlier today, and the person waxing eloquent talked about something lying outside of reality, and I said, you do realize that that's a contradiction in terms? Nothing can lie outside of reality. Okay, reality is all encompassing.
Welcome, Mikhail. Did you looks like you got a call or something?
Notice how, upon my questioning them, how quickly they fold when their cliches don't work.
But it doesn't take too long.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because what I'm doing is I'm not allowing them to frame the dialectic.
Yeah, they
What I'm actually
constantly
doing is I'm taking what they're saying. I take what they say, and I'm reframing it in the proper context.
when
you take what they say and place it within the proper context, then it doesn't work.
when they do there's no evidence for God, and I go, well, yeah, you're saying like evidence exists independent of God. Can you defend that?
If they had a clear, robust defeater for the existence of God, why would they bother with saying there's no evidence? There's no evidence for God.
Right.
If I had a clear, robust defeater for aliens on other planets, I wouldn't have to bother with going, there's no evidence for aliens. I would just simply saying aliens don't exist because X, Y, Z. But if you don't have a robust defeater for aliens, you just sit there and go, oh, well, there's no evidence for aliens. Now, it's perfectly appropriate in certain contexts to say, well, there's no reason to believe that there's life on other planets. But when your real position is there are no aliens or there is no God, asserting that there's no evidence for it, it is not a robust defeater. It's just a stopgap slogan.
Or you can say, up until now, we have no reason to believe that there is a God.
That's just an appeal to ignorance fallacy. Okay, so if you say I don't have a reason to believe in God, then the position that you're operating from is the not God world is the default position, and therefore the default the not God world is true because it hasn't been falsified, which would constitute an appeal to ignorance fallacy. You understand?
I don't think that works.
Did you understand? Did you understand what I just said?
I understand what you're saying, but
okay. So when they appeal that they don't have a reason for the God world, it means that they're operating out of the not God world already. Okay, and so therefore, what they're doing is they're smuggling in atheism. They're smuggling in the not God world as though it's the default, and saying because you haven't falsified the not God world, therefore we're justified in concluding God does not exist. So do you understand the mistake there? It's an appeal to ignorance fallacy. That a proposition, do you know what an appeal to ignorance fallacy is? It's a proposition is deemed to be true solely on the ground that it hasn't been falsified. So if you say you're justified in concluding that God does not exist because evidence has not been forthcoming for God, it doesn't follow from that God doesn't exist. I could quote to you atheist philosopher Kai Nielsen. He says all of the reasons for God might fail, but it still could be the case that God exists. Okay?
Yeah, that's right. I agree with you on that. That makes sense. But what I said, what I'm trying to point to is, do you know how like scientific ideas like progress, right? Like there'll be
Don't
a
get me
theory, they'll have a model.
don't get me started. Hold on a second. Don't get me started on the history and philosophy of science, because I'm probably more educated on it than you are.
That's
okay.
Fine. That's fine, but can I just finish?
Yeah. So the point is, we're talking about metaphysics, not scientific endeavors.
And that's the okay. So that's the thing then. So like, we can talk about metaphysics and philosophy, but I think that if you're going to tell someone that something exists, like, what do you mean by God exists then? Like, do you mean that God exists? Like, wait, and please, can you be like, I want to be polite too in this conversation, because I like this kind of topic, and I'm not coming in like being belligerent. I want to be polite. So could you at least let me finish my point? I promise I'll finish in 1 minute, and then you can have your turn.
I'm listening.
All right. So when we observe nature and we make models about it, and we look for patterns.
You don't observe. You don't observe nature.
Yes,
no,
nature.
sir. No, you don't. No,
You
sir.
observe.
You
At
don't.
least
You
let me
don't
finish, and
observe.
then you can.
Okay, sir. Listen to me carefully. You're making an elementary. You're making a mistake. Okay, nature is equivalent to saying reality. Okay, you're only observing small instances of the whole. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Are you observing the whole or the part?
Can I finish, please? I just want
to answer my question. When you say you observe nature, are you observing the whole of nature or a part of nature?
You can see as human beings, so you can say a part of it.
Sir, okay, good. So you're observing part of it. So what? So you observe part of the world.
So we're observing part of the world, and we try to make models to understand it.
Okay, right. So in those models,
physics, biology.
Okay, so hold on a second. So are these models contextualized either with or without reference to God?
That's an irrelevance.
No, it is relevant, because you can't have a model that is absent a metaphysic. All models have to either have an explicit or an implicit metaphysic. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything.
How so? How
you can't have a neutral model. That's a fallacy.
What does God have to do with the correctness of Lagrangian?
So I'm trying to explain to you something that you're not educated about. Okay? Do you know what a paradigm is? Do you know what a paradigm is?
What a paradigm is, and hopefully we can have a paradigm shift.
What is okay? So there are different scales of. Sir, you're being uncooperative. Okay.
How am I being?
Now, you know what? I'm almost done with you. Okay.
Sure.
So the point is this: can you have? Okay, if you decide. Okay, goodbye. You're done. Have a nice day. Not only is your connection bad, you're entirely uncooperative. So the guy wants us to believe that we can have models without context. Really? Then what reason do you have to believe that that regularities extend beyond your experiences, and that regularities will continue into the future? What reason do you have to believe that? Appealing to past regularities will not rationally justify that regularities extend past your sensory apparatus, and that they'll continue into the future. You see, PMARS, we have these young skulls full of mush that they think they're more educated on these topics than they are.
Yeah, and then I don't know. We're asking them a question basically they can't answer, but they don't know that, and so they try to answer it.
Yeah. So models don't have a context, really. So what reason? So there's nothing that actualizes regularities or laws of nature, because laws of nature are just a fancy way of talking about certain things are regular. So are they regular because of it just happenstance? There's nothing imposing it. It's just an amazing coincidence in our little part of the universe. They're just amazing coincidences. See, this idea that you can have propositions in a neutral context is widespread, but it's fallacious.
Yeah, we can't believe a donkey can talk, but we can believe that order comes from chaos. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if they want to establish that naturalism is true, they might have a start on objecting to talking donkeys.
That guy, what
But
he
if
had to say,
naturalism,
Doc,
if
but you weren't
naturalism,
being
hold on a
patient
second.
enough with him.
No, I am patient. I have 14 years of experience, and when somebody clearly demonstrates to me that they're being utterly uncooperative, then I'm not going to continue to waste my time. Okay?
Yes, sir. But
I'm
Dark,
very
he
well
was. I
experienced.
know it took him a
I'm
little while
very
to.
well experienced. I am very well experienced with people who are clearly communicating that they're committed to being uncooperative. I don't expect that they have to agree with me, but he did know what he was talking about. He actually made a whopper of a mistake that
Right, I
models
saw
can
that.
be invoked as actual, as real, without a metaphysical context. That's a monumental blunder on his part. But he
Right.
refused to understand that you can't talk about propositions without context, unless, of course, the proposition in question is absolute and invariant itself, requiring no external context. Otherwise, propositions, including discussions about models of how the world is, requires context. But being that he's a super genius, he didn't realize that.
And the fact that he's not taking into context that all design and has to have a designer, but he's requesting back up. Can you bring him back up and then give him another chance?
No, because he clearly gave signs. It's the same thing will happen all over again.
All right. Thank you for having me up,
Look,
host.
I have 14 years of experience dealing with these people. Right?
Okay.
They think they're more educated on the subject matter than they are because they're passionate and because maybe they're successful in arguing and debating with their peers. Right?
I don't know. I sort of see
with me.
that their arrogance is puffing you up in pride, and I think that maybe you should.
How am I exemplifying pride?
Okay. What I'm saying is that
How is me expressing that I'm more educated on the subject matter than how does that mean that I'm prideful?
no, that's not it. That's okay to
Good.
do.
How did I? Okay, stop. You're going to answer the question right now, or I'm going to kick you. What did I do or say that exemplified pride?
Okay, first of all, you always use that as a thing in order to get around it. You're going to kick everyone.
You're not
That's
answering
not
the
that.
question.
You,
Okay.
I'm going to answer you. I'm going to
didn't.
answer you.
No,
I'm
you're
going to
not
answer you.
Listen to me. Okay, goodbye.
I'm going to answer
Goodbye.
you.
You're being prideful right now. Goodbye. I asked him to explain with specificity how I was guilty of exhibiting pride, and then he just starts jibber jabbering, and then I may say, "You're not answering a question." I'm going to answer. Well, what did I just hear before that? Unbelievable. Where do they grow these people?
Pride comes with.
I don't mind people intelligently and maturely disagreeing, but I don't have time for teenage males who think they are more educated than they are.
Hey, what up?
Are you an atheist?
No, I'm a Protestant.
Okay.
So I was
What would you like to say?
I don't know. I just went up here just to ask you, are you a Protestant?
Yeah, I'm a Bible-believing Christian.
No. I don't know. I just wanted to ask that, man. I was just curious.
Thanks for coming.
Well, God bless you guys. Sorry for wasting your time.
We're not wasting our time. What we're doing is we're defending the revelation of God through creation and through Jesus Christ.
He said he was sorry for wasting our time. That's what he said.
Oh, okay. I thought he said our time. Okay.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
Welcome. What would you like to say?
Oh, I don't believe that God exists.
Okay, why?
Because doesn't follow the principles of the logic of the.
What would secure logic in a world without God?
You need to justify the identity.
You're not focusing. Okay. How would God be illogical?
How God can be logic?
Yeah.
Because humans can have any illogical thing to like any illogical thing can't exist.
And when are you going to complete your PhD?
Oh, actually, I am engineer and I'm a study about it. Yeah, I'm mechanical engineer.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Can you tell me what bridges that you have worked on so I don't drive over them?
Sorry, my English is not good. Can you repeat again, please?
Never mind.
Oh, what do you do? The whole like God needs logic to have properties, or something like that. But what? Well, I think William Lane Craig says God's properties exist before God conceives of his properties. But it's not like a defeater for the Christian worldview. So maybe we should wrap it up there. There isn't really anyone else requesting up.
Yeah. We're getting all these super geniuses.
Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, I haven't really looked into that issue too much. I just read that William Lane Craig says God has properties before he conceives his properties. So, like, what, like the law?
Before he what? I missed the latter part of that.
God has his properties. His properties exist before he conceives of them. So, I guess what, like the law of logic or the law of identity would exist in the nature of God before he conceives.
No. God is the ultimate instantiation of the law of identity.
Right.
God is the ultimate identity statement from which all contingent identity statements derive and depend.
He would be the identity before he conceives the identity, I guess, is like the defined.
Yeah. So God is the identity statement of all identity statements. Okay. So God represents the ultimate identity statement.
Right.
It's not. Look, the law. Look, the law of identity is an abstraction, right? So the laws of logic don't stand in causal relations. So God being the ultimate ontological identity state constitutes and secures other contingent or derivative identity states where they equal themselves in a time index and cannot equal their negation, and hence from that we surmise the law of identity. See, people make the mistake that, quote, the laws of logic, they think of them as standing in causal relations. This is a typical mistake that people make.
We need like a concrete universal to cause any universal to be actual. Is that like the idea?
You need God as the concrete universal to ground the laws of logic. Okay? In other words, the laws of logic are considered to be absolute universal invariant, which means that for all identity states, they equal themselves in a time index. Okay, so why is it for each unique identity state it equals itself? What actualizes that? Does each identity state, does it possess identity in and of itself that it's absolute? Or does it possess identity because it's derivative or contingent? So the laws of logic per se don't stand in causal relations. And when people invoke the laws of logic as though they did stand in causal relations, they're ill-informed and they don't know what they're talking about.
Hello?
Oh yeah, welcome,
Yeah, I
guest.
can call me SK. SK.
Okay, SK, what would you like to say?
Okay, so I'm a believer, but I'm just wondering where actually God.
Can you get closer to your
Okay, sorry
microphone?
about that. Yeah. Is it audible? Okay.
That's better.
So I'm a believer. I was born Orthodox, but I will call myself. But I was wondering where God and angels, reside. Is there some sort of explanation for that? Is it some sort of
We're not given coordinates.
okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Right. We're not given coordinates.
Okay. Mm. Okay. Yeah, that was my question. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's one we can't answer. Thanks for joining. Paraduper has something to say.
Who was that guy who you said with the philosophical genius? What was his name?
Lucario, he goes by.
Yeah,
So,
he just
so
has he just has this pre-memorized syllogism that even he himself know that it's not intelligible and it's convoluted.
is my mic
Just
working?
yeah, it is. It's just a syllogism that's formulated in order to bamboozle you and cause your eyes to glaze over. That's all it is. It's an exercise in sophism.
So I had actually had a comment on that, and maybe you can follow up on this, Darth. As I thought about his first premise, and he says, I'm going to kind of say it roughly, but it was something like, if there's no logical contradiction in God, then God exists in some possible world. But the unspoken reverse of that would be, if there's a logical contradiction in God, then he doesn't exist. But then what he's saying implicitly is that the laws of logic do not exist with God as their necessary precondition. In other words, God's not necessary. So that's smuggling in that God doesn't exist from the start.
Yeah. Well, first of all, he's not trying to make an intelligible syllogism. It was worded for the purpose of being obfuscatory. He's not trying to speak with clarity. Okay, he's just trying to verbally bamboozle.
Well, we know he's trying to verbally bamboozle, because the only way that he could falsify God rationally is to tell us what's ultimate that's not God, or that there's nothing that's ultimate. No appealing. No appeal to any number. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you have to present an identity statement that functions as the negator for God.
Because it doesn't matter how many states of affairs you appeal to in the world, that then you infer that there's no God from, because you could just be wrong about those states of affairs. So you'd have to establish what's ultimate that's not God first.
Yeah, and they can't.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that too, Paraduper, when he was talking about that God exists. It's true that God exists in a possible world. That God's logic to say God's logically possible would be like, then he's not necessary. Then he'd be like contingent. So that was smuggling in atheism.
Precondition for the viability of logic, right? Well, that would just entail that God doesn't exist before you even start the argument.
Yeah, he's another verbally bamboozling sophist.
I think he says he's like a philosophy student in college. So this is what our
well, that means that he's to even be more indicted, because he's not trying to speak with clarity. Okay, he's not trying to be clear. All right, guys, I will be back in a few minutes.
Well, actually, I think I might. Let's see if anyone's requesting. Is this just Cartesian? What's up? I'm wrapping it up, I guess. Wrapping up the live.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, oh, Darth is not here. I wanted to talk to Darth. Whatever.
Yeah, he took a break. Yeah, I don't think he would last long. Restart anyways. Cause he'll speed run pre-soak, so. But anyways, yeah, I'm making lunch here, so I'll talk to you guys.